it is time to do my final update on my Lorac Mega Pro 1 palette. I have like a bunch of unexpected feelings about this. So before we go into the final, I'm going to take you back to literally 24 months ago when I first selected this palette to do my project pan on, and then I will show you where my palette is winding up after 24 months. All right, are you ready for it? This is what my palette looks like after 24 freaking months of hard work. So, nothing has been completely panned since my 23-month update. And I will admit, I got a little distracted from this palette because I was desperately trying to figure out what I wanted to pan in 2020. I literally have spent so much time working on this palette and only really sort of playing a little bit with my other palettes that I didn't have a clear vision. For a minute, I thought it was going to be my Lorac Mega Pro 2 palette, which would have been insane. But let's not get distracted. Let's just talk about some statistics about this palette. So this palette has 17.6 grams of shadow dispersed amongst 32 different pans. Over the course of my 24 months, I ended up potting and throwing out 8 shadows, either because I didn't like the quality of the shadow or I didn't like the color. It wasn't a color that I was going to get use out of, didn't want to spend too long on. I also managed to pan completely 16 different eyeshadows. And as you can see in here, I have 2 that remain untouched for various reasons. Mulberry just really wasn't my jam. Probably should have just depotted it a long time ago. And Maroon, which I really did like, but just came to too late in the game to be able to produce noticeable dip and usage on it. And then I'm also left with 5 shadows that I hit considerable pan on. I am like really feeling weird about this. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. I am so proud to have used up so much of this product, and I definitely feel like I got my money's worth, and I love seeing all of this pan. But I feel a little bit weird because, one, I didn't finish off Dusty Plum, and that's really where I spent most of my focus in December. I love Dusty Plum, and I know some of you are going to tell me that I can repress it or I can pop it out, but really and truly, this palette needs to go. The formulation is on its last legs. I can definitely tell that by mixing this product with air and with the oils of my face, like, it is just ready to part with me. But I'm also kind of freaking out because this has been my 5 to 6 days a week palette for 24 months, which is wild. Like, I know this eyeshadow palette better than I think I have ever come to know a single piece of cosmetic makeup in my entire life. And it's not a bad thing. Like, it's awesome that we're here. It just feels very weird. And I definitely think that that's partly what made it so hard for me to choose a new palette for 2020, was because I felt like I didn't know anything as well as this. Wasn't sure if what I was going to choose for 2020 would be as phenomenal as this palette. And I'm still not quite sure, but I feel like I will have better clarity, and I feel like I will be over this hump, this weird hump that I'm at right now, when I say goodbye to this, when I put this beautiful palette in to the trash and say goodbye to it forever. It has been a wild ride. If you had told me 24 months ago that I was going to spend 2 years on one palette, I would have told you you were crazy, that I wouldn't have done that. But it really does show you how great this palette is. I really think this is a great palette. I am so pleased to have picked this up and used it the way I have. A few of you throughout like the last, I think 3 or 4 months have asked me the reoccurring question of like, has panning this changed your purchasing of eyeshadow? And in my answer to that, I thought a lot about this. My answer to that is no, which you might be shocked to hear, but here's what I think. I don't think panning this palette in isolation has changed my eyeshadow purchasing. I think using this palette plus scrutinizing very heavily my eyeshadow palette collection over the course of this year, those two things combined have had some kind of impact on my purchasing, but probably not in the way you're expecting. It has made me hyper aware of the types of shadows that I am drawn to, and it has made me very aware of what I have currently in my collection. And so those are the things that I think about when looking at new palettes. I think about, well, how much of this particular shade range do I already have? I think about how much product is actually in that palette, because I am now aware of what 17.6 grams of product can look like. But truthfully, grams isn't as scientific as you would expect, because it's also all about how hard pressed some of these shadows are. These mattes took me way longer to use than many of the shimmers did, because the shimmers picked up way more product than the mattes did as I was using them. So even though they had the same amount of gram in them, it didn't necessarily quantify how quickly I would use them up. So I just in general am now more thoughtful about what am I adding shade-wise, quality-wise to my collection. I don't think that every palette I purchase I am going to pan. If that were the case, I wouldn't be able to purchase a palette for probably like 10 more years, but I am more cognizant of what kinds of shades would I want to pan, and do I want to bring that type of palette into my life. So I am very much looking forward to the next chapter of eyeshadow panning that I'm going to do in 2020. I tell you, without doubt, it is going to be a 1-year challenge. While I didn't mind doing this for 2 years, I definitely want to take a break before I pick up another massive palette like this. But I so appreciate how much you guys have supported me and cheered me on, and those of you that have told me you've picked up this palette because of me, like that just makes my heart sing. I think it's really important that we find love in our products, and I'm really happy that I was able to find love in this, and that I was able to inspire some of you to find love in your own edition of this palette. It's been a wild ride. I'm so grateful to have done this, and it feels really good to take this big kahuna and move it out of my life. But that is it for me. I wish you all a happy new year, and here's to 2020. Let's see what we do for eyeshadow together. So with that, I leave you, and I'll talk to you again in my next video real soon.